I want to talk about water and sanitation for the last mile of rural Alaska. So when I talk about water and sanitation, water, I'm talking about clean water that's free of pathogens and disease-causing chemicals. And for sanitation, I mean safely managed sanitation, where human waste is separated from human exposure and contained before being treated and disposed. And there are a lot of variations in how these kinds of services are provided around the world in different regions and cultures and communities. For example, in a lot of us on the webinar today might be drinking tap water primarily. Some people might prefer bottled water. We might have different preferences on ice, on sparkling. At home, we might get water from a well or a spring. We might use on-site filters or Brita filters. We all have different habits and variations, but typically, at least in developed countries, we always want to have treated water. Most of us don't go out to the river and just stick a straw in it, right? So access to water and sanitation is a universal way to improve and maintain health around the home in the ways that you can see here. However, access to water and sanitation is an ongoing and worldwide challenge. 2.1 billion people in the world lack water, and 4.4 billion people lack sanitation by the definitions I just gave. And you can see from these maps here, which show darker colors for higher coverage within the country, that there is still a lot of lack of data in general on these issues. Now in developed countries, like in the US, you can see we're in the darker colors. So we don't think about water and sanitation a whole awful lot, but we still do have a lot of issues in last mile communities. So you can see here that places like Alaska are grouped in. With the rest of the US, we get the same color because Alaska is part of the US. But in reality, while most of the US has greater than 95% coverage of services, rural Alaska can have, by some estimates, less than 70% coverage of water and sanitation. Rural Alaska is considered a last mile area for providing water and sanitation for a lot of different reasons. It's really difficult to access those areas. You can see here from the map that there's a lot of places in Alaska that the road system, the highway, the ferry system or the train system don't access. It's really difficult to get to a vast majority of the state. Things are really expensive to build there as a result. It can be difficult to maintain infrastructure, and it's a really challenging climate. So you're trying to deal with very extreme temperatures, very, very extreme cold and extreme weather. So in these unserved last mile communities, water services can typically involve using natural sources. So here on the left, there's a picture of a rainwater catchment system. People also bring water from snowmelt or from the river. Or if people are using treated water, they're using water self-hauled from a local treatment point in the community, and then they have to haul it by themselves, which requires many different vessels, vehicles, strong people to carry water in and out of the home. On the sanitation side, honey buckets, as shown here on the right, are really common, or outhouses. Or again, you have self-haul. Maybe if you're lucky, you can use a pumper truck like shown here on the bottom. But you have to make sure you have a truck that works, you have to have roads that work, and you have to have a place like a sewage lagoon where you can dump that waste. And this lack of water and sanitation in these communities has led to big health impacts, such as respiratory, skin, and stomach illnesses in rural communities at much higher rates than in other parts of the US. So we know Alaska needs water and sanitation, but the last mile is a big challenge to serve. Pipes are the gold standard for water and sanitation so that you don't have to haul, or they serve an entire community, but they have technical operation maintenance, cost issues, they're challenging in the climate, and they can be difficult to serve communities that are impacting climate change. So I'm looking at alternative solutions, like household level systems that have few pipes, that are lower cost, lower tech, and movable in challenging climatic solutions. I'm working with a team in Alaska to build and test a water and sanitation system that's an alternative to pipes. This is from the Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium. So the water here, you haul in whatever source you want, and it treats it on site and fills up the storage tank so people have access to safe, clean storage. Water from that tank feeds a low flow sink, so people have opportunities to use that water for hand washing, without spreading diseases around the home. You can also use the water for cooking. And then there's a separating dry toilet. So urine goes in the front of the toilet, and urine and gray water from the toilet and sink go straight into the ground, so you don't have to haul it out. And solids from the toilet get dried and get carried out by hand, but they have this ventilation fan, so it's a lot cleaner, less sloppy, and less smelly of a process. The pros of this system are that it's low tech, cheaper than pipes, and less permanent. And there's also hypothesized health benefits that we were testing. So that's some of my work, is to both build and test these systems to understand how they work in rural Alaska. And this is big collaborative work for water and sanitation. We're not just working as engineers, but also with health practitioners, social and life scientists, and with Native communities to try to tackle the problem of providing water and sanitation in these communities. And there is really a larger application to circumpolar communities that don't have water and sanitation. So you can see that it's hard to get water and sanitation infrastructure to the last mile in the north, but it is a really critical piece for communities to be healthy and thrive. So I look forward to continue to communicate and collaborate with other interdisciplinary researchers to improve water and sanitation access in the future. Thank you very much.